Hey, yo, Foxboro. Thank you for being here with me for another episode today to go over the Patriots at Packers game. What a roller coaster of a game that was. I think it's kind of hard to see what the consensus is online. I feel like most of us are pretty happy with what we saw, but there are quite a few people also that are not, and kind of shaming those of us that are. So, we shall see. Um hey, Chris Godwin's in the house after didn't he go back in the game last night? So a shout out to you. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Pole Took. I remember you from Dear Pets Nation, I believe. So welcome back. I haven't seen you in a while. At least that you haven't commented in a while. Also, I'm playing a little bit of background music today because I just discovered that feature on here. So if that's a problem, or can we even hear it? It's barely. I don't even think you can really hear it. But I was just trying to do something different. I can hear it a very teeny bit. But anyway, if it becomes a problem, like you guys can't hear me or something, just let me know because I'm unfamiliar with it. So I want to just get straight into talking about this game because I have a lot to say, so much to say that the article that I usually put out about the good, the bad, and the ugly every week with Musket Fire had to be split into two this week because I couldn't stop myself from talking about every single good thing and the bad things in this game. So probably should get straight to it this week as well. So this week it was all about the rookies, and I felt like that was super exciting, especially with Belichick being so criticized for his picks in the throughout his entire head coaching career with the Patriots, but especially as of late. So it was really cool to see the rookies step up and the entire team really just rally around Zach, and I feel like their overall performance was super encouraging. So, that's going to be my optimistic take. If you don't agree with it, I apologize, but that's just how my brain works. Okay. So let's get right into it. As I said, the best of the game. Bailey Zappi gets his first start. So one of my tweets has gotten a bit of traction that I sent out last night, and some people's reactions is a little bit odd to me. But in case you do not follow me on Twitter, I'm trying to find the tweet so I can read it to you guys. Okay, here it is. I said, the Patriots just took an Aaron Rodgers-led Packers team through an entire overtime period at Lambeau Field and only lost by a field goal with an unprepared third-string quarterback. So it's gotten some traction, and I had some people that wasn't understanding what I meant by that as far as referring to Zappi as unprepared. So what I meant is not that he didn't look good. Obviously, there's things that he needs to work on. He's a rookie, but he did play much better than I think many of us anticipated, especially on such short notice. I mean, it was literally in the first quarter that he had to come in. And when I said unprepared, I simply just meant he wasn't getting, backup reps necessarily this week. Like, they've already reported that since training camp or since preseason ended that he's kind of fallen back and getting reps and practicing a lot with like the starters and stuff, obviously. So this was just a big moment for him. I can't imagine that he was preparing as if he was going to come in and this game at all, unless for some reason the Patriots were blowing out the Packers, which I don't think anyone thought was going to happen. But so I want to make sure that I clarify that. Well, held his own yesterday. And as I said, Brian Hoyer got a concussion in the first quarter after a sack. So Zappi came in pretty early in the first quarter. He had a tough opening drive, which I feel like that can just be attributed to nerves. And, the offense was kind of, I'm sure, a little bit uneasy just because they had been preparing all week with Hoyer, and then Zappi gets thrown in. So, but what I was excited to see, and I talked about this on Saturday in the game preview, was I was hoping to see more of a rotation between like the receivers, because from what we saw in preseason practices and games, you could see that the quarterbacks, all three of them, had different chemistry with different receivers. And so I was expecting that we were going to kind of see with Zappy. And I think that we saw it a little bit, but not as much as I was thinking. However, we did see Kendrick Bourne involved a little bit more. I forgot to look at the snap counts, but I'll have to look at that. There were some great passes that he had to Aguilar, obviously the touchdown to Parker, and then we even saw a catch by Humphrey, which was exciting for me because I really like him. So that was nice to see. Definitely established the run game early, which I was totally fine with. Oh my goodness, my cat. As I was talking about on Saturday, the Packers' run defense is not their strongest point of their defense. So I was expecting this to be a heavy Damien Harris, Ramondre Stevenson type of game. Exactly what we got. We did see the moment, and I'm going to talk about Wynn. Don't worry, because I saw your guys' comments. So Zappy was strip sacked by a bad block from Isaiah Wynn. Thankfully, it only led to a punt by Green Bay, so it didn't super impact the result of the game. But of course, it does give extra time on the field to Aaron Rodgers, and it could have been a complete disaster. We did see Marcus Cannon that came in, and he basically looked like he never left, if we're being honest. To replace Wynn when it was very much needed, was a huge help in the protection of Zappy. He helped navigate the running backs and create open paths for them. And then Zappy looked great even after halftime. I know a lot of people were kind of concerned. I saw people talking about it on Twitter. Usually I look forward to the halftime adjustments, but with this team, it's kind of uncut after halftime. But on their first drive is when we saw a touchdown, a 25-yard touchdown pass to Devontae Parker, which was an awesome way to start the second half. That would make Zappy the first rookie quarterback of the season to throw a touchdown, where who would have thunk it, right? I think I even tweeted that. Who would have thunk it? So he did take 2 sacks on the day. Well, he had a total of 3, but I would say that only 2 of those sacks would be put on his shoulders because he held the ball on one occasion for over 4 seconds, and the next one was for over 5. So those are just those kinds of things that he'll learn, obviously, as he's developing and working more with the offense and with Belichick. Clearly, he needs to work on pocket awareness. He needs to realize when to throw the ball away, but that's nothing that's super concerning. Those are things that can be easily fixed and not a concern, I think, really, because who knows how much we're going to see Zappy going forward. Because, we don't know what is going on with Mac Jones and how long he's going to be out. We don't know if Hoyer is now going to miss next game, if Jones has to miss it. So we'll have to see. But, overall, I think he had a really promising first start, especially given the circumstances of, not just when he came in, but who they were playing and where they were playing. There's people that are saying they're kind of trying to discredit the Patriots for, keeping it close because, the Packers aren't the same Packers of yesteryear or whatever. And I get their argument to a certain extent, but I feel like there's still something that's pretty intimidating about playing Aaron Rodgers and playing at Green Bay. So, we saw them wake up in the second half and play more of what we're used to seeing from Green Bay. So I applaud Bailey Zappy for holding it down and keeping them within reach, of this game. It didn't let it get out of hand. They weren't really ever playing from behind. And I think he exceeded many of our expectations, despite the number of people that actually wanted him to play instead of Hoyer. So I say kudos to you, Mr. Zappy. Let's see. I want to get to your comments in between everything. So Chris says, considering our starting cast, it should be considered a great achievement to take Aaron Rodgers to overtime. That's what I was saying. And I understand that people are setting their expectations higher and thinking that the people who are applauding them are kind of lowering their expectations or desires for where they feel like the team should be right now. But I think that recognizing that they're in this like transition period this season of still trying to figure out what they're going to be doing offensively with their new offensive coordinator, but not technical offensive coordinator. You know, Mac Jones is in his second season, and there's going to be things that he's going to need to overcome there. They're still trying to figure out a new offense that they were allegedly trying to implement. So there's a lot of things to take in to consider when really evaluating the team this year. And I feel like it's a little bit unfair to discredit this near victory. I mean, it would have been a huge upset had they won. And they literally won or lost by only 3 points. And it's only because they weren't able to make a stop on the Packers' second drive in overtime. So sorry, I have a very dry throat. So let's see. Chris also says there's no way Bailey could have known he was going to play. The young man handled himself very well. I agree, and I think you were someone who actually agreed with me on Twitter, or maybe you didn't. I don't know. There were so many people that were interacting with me, and I just had to acknowledge the people that agreed. Hi, Joe. He says, hi, Sarah. Sorry for coming late. Do you know if they officially signed Collins, or is it just a rumor? They did officially sign him, as far as I know. Mike Reese tweeted that out this morning. So I guess we will be seeing him return. I think we're waiting on the Patriots to officially announce it, but I think Mike Reese is a pretty reliable source. So we shall see when that official news breaks. Also, Joe, I was going to ask you, I've been wanting to ask you, are you going to return to Twitter? Because I know that I saw that you left. Just curious to see if you will be coming back. Freddie says, not sure why we are still not using the tight ends. Smith is now out with a high ankle sprain. Has it been officially announced as a high ankle sprain? I know that was the fear originally, but I really hope it's not that. But yes, so let's move on to the next great player of the year of the game yesterday, Jack Jones. We love a good cornerback. He was phenomenal yesterday, got his first NFL start in place of Jalen Mills. And I feel like you either wouldn't have been able to tell that he wasn't a normal starter, or you kind of didn't really miss Jalen Mills. And I like Jalen Mills, and I was thinking that he was going to have a phenomenal year. So I don't mean any shade towards him, but what a debut for Jack Jones. He started the game off hot with a forced fumble that he forced the fumble. Jeez Louise. And recovered it from Romeo Doubs in the first quarter. Showed completely great awareness and aggressive play right out of the gate. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but he kept trying to punch out footballs for the rest of the game. I don't remember which play it was, but it was after this. And you could just see him trying to punch the football out even after the play was over. So I thought that was kind of funny and just showed you what type of guy he is and the type of impression that he was trying to make in his first game. I do want to acknowledge that he struggled at one point. There was a stretch of plays when the Packers were moving down the field when he allowed a few runs in his path of 7, 10, and 15 yards. So definitely needs to work on his run defense. But as we know, he would pick off Aaron Rodgers right before halftime, run it back for 40 yards for the touchdown to put them up 10-7 at halftime. And what I thought was really interesting, I don't know, I think this was said on the broadcast, but it was only Rodgers' second pick six at home in his career. So, I mean, if anyone deserved the game ball yesterday, other than Bailey Zappi but Jack Jones, I mean, I don't think that anyone was expecting that from him, and it was just really cool to see that. So for the day in coverage, he allowed 2 out of 4 completions for 35 yards. He became the first rookie in NFL history to record an interception, touchdown, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery in a single game. So definitely a high caliber player playing at an insane level as if he's been coached by Belichick for years. It was really cool to see, and I'm curious to see what happens going forward as far as, are we going to keep seeing Jones starting? Is he going to be the guy instead of Jalen Mills, or are we going to kind of see them rotate out? I don't know. It's going to be an interesting decision for Belichick to make, and he has quite a few of them to make, I think, going forward. So I am very curious because we know that they liked Jack Jones, especially coming out of the draft, and a lot of people were not, I think people were excited but not completely thrilled, since a lot of people really wanted them to go for a cornerback in the first round. But I mean, at this point, if this is how Jack Jones is going to perform, then they got to steal from the fourth round. I mean, if we're being honest. So I'm very excited to see what happens with Jack in the future. And then, of course, we have Matthew Judon doing Matthew Judon things. I feel like I say that every single week, but I am very excited because this is exactly what we wanted and what we need from Matthew Judon. I feel like, and I saw a couple people on Twitter talking about it especially, but they were saying they kind of felt like his season is going a bit under the radar because he's not having necessarily insane numbers, but he's on par with kind of like what he was doing in his first year last year with the Patriots. So he has 4 sacks through the first 4 games. He picked up a sack in this game, and although he was only credited with 1 sack for -7 yards, he nearly grabbed another one later in the game. He even talked about the one in overtime because it was almost a sack. He said, I got a good get off, use the double swipe. I've just got to get him down. So, you know, he's working, and he was in Rodgers' face all game long. It was actually kind of funny to see how uncomfortable Rodgers was seeing this giant man with the red sleeves running at him and just in his face. Like, I'm sure Judon could have almost had multiple, 3-4 sacks in this game. But we'll get into one problem that he continues to face this year, and that could be a huge contributor to why this didn't happen. But he broke some more records. Guys, I don't know if you saw this, but he became only the second player in Patriots history to record a sack in each of the first 4 games. And the only other player to ever do that for the Patriots is Andre Tippett in 1986. So, fantastic player, great attitude. Really love to see in the post-game press conference him just giving so much support to Bailey Zappi because, he doesn't work with him. He plays on the opposite side of the football, but I love how supportive he was of Zappi. And then last week he, was saying we ride with Mac Jones till the end. And it's just, I love that type of mentality from players. And I think that the last few Patriots teams have been unique, and you can see how close they are and how much of a bond and like brotherhood that they have. And so it's really nice to see even newer Patriots that haven't been with the team for, several years have that same reaction to their teammates. And I think Judon is a driving force there. So it's really cool to see that. I saw Chris say, if only we had three Matt Judons. Wouldn't that be amazing? I feel like it's possible that they can get there at a certain point. We just need the other linebackers to kick it up. And they looked great in the preseason. They're just definitely not developing as quickly as I was hoping. But I think that they could get there at a certain point, hopefully. Let's see. Freddie says, Patriots draft cornerbacks like Steelers draft wide receivers. It's incredible. I just hope he can keep some of them and pay them instead of just letting them walk. Yeah. And that's what I was talking about on Saturday that I'm even concerned about with Jonathan Jones, because so far he's been playing really well. Didn't have the best showing yesterday, but I mean, it was against Aaron Rodgers, so I give him some leeway there. But he's playing on a contract year, so I am very concerned that if he continues to play at a high level like he's been through 4 weeks now, that Belichick isn't going to want to pay him. So, that's the type of thing that I worry about every time a player plays well for the Patriots. The same thing with like Damien Harris. He's playing well this year and could definitely pick it up in the next several weeks, but he's playing in a contract year and it's possible that they let him walk at the end. So I don't even want to think about it yet. It always makes me so sad. So sticking to the Jays, but also the Joneses, let's get to Marcus Jones, aka the punt and kick return king yesterday. He was just, I think when they came out for the returns, I wasn't sure of who it was going to be at first. And then when they said it was Marcus Jones, I was like, oh, okay. Still a little concerned because as far as the returns go this year, they have not been good. It's been very scary to watch. And the Patriots just released Harvey Lange. Was he on the practice squad or? Oh, okay. Yes, he was. Okay. Good to know. Thank you, Jeff, for that update. Interesting. People assume that it's going to be making way for a quarterback, but I don't know. It's possible because it was the practice squad, so we'll have to pay attention to see what they do there. But anyway, Marcus Jones. So the punt returns and kick returns or whatever have been super worrisome. Obviously, we saw Miles Bryant try them. Marcus Jones up until this point was not doing that great, but he turned things around yesterday. And it looks like they may have finally found their returner since Gunnar Olszewski left and Brandon Bolden left. If he can keep playing this way anyway, because hopefully this wasn't just a one-off, but he was great. He had 4 kick returns that totaled 111 yards. Longest was for 37 yards. He had 2 kick returns for 49 yards, and one of them was for 29 yards. So he was consistently putting the offense in good position. Had drive. Some of his best returns put the offense at their own 40, which was then taken back, I think, 10 or 15 yards for a penalty, but still, yeah, I still credit him for getting them to the 40. One was at the 50 and the other was at their own 49-yard line. So he was definitely working and trying to help the offense as much as possible, especially given their circumstances. And he would become only the 4th rookie in NFL history to record 4 or more kick returns, averaging 24 yards or more on those returns, recording 2 or more punt returns, and averaging 24 yards or more on those punt returns. So he joins Wes Welker, Keyshawn Martin, and BJ Sams. So another record for a rookie yesterday. 2 great rookies, I would say, out of the 2022 draft class that deserve their praise from this game, because I just don't know that there was anyone that was sitting there thinking that this was going to happen yesterday. And Chris says clearly the Patriots need to recruit more Joneses. I am telling you, it would be kind of fun if they had some more on offense, because we have 3 on defense and only 1 on offense. So I would like to see some more on offense. I think that would make things a little bit more interesting. So let's get to Marcus Cannon, our, old but beloved friend Marcus Cannon. He was brought up from the practice squad for this game in place of Yanni Kajus, who went to IR. And I think he's reverting back to the practice squad today because I think they just elevated him. I don't believe that they actually assigned him to the roster, but he was performing so well and Wynn was performing so poorly that they would put Cannon in Wynn's place after he had allowed 2 or 3 sacks at that point. So he was coming in playing as the 6th lineman for jumbo packages throughout the game. Definitely a huge help to keep protection of Zappe and the run game. And he looked like he never left. I think a lot of people were concerned because I think he played like 7 games last year for the Texans and he sat out the 2020 season. So he hasn't had a lot of game time over the last 2 years, but I mean, he was keeping the line running smoothly, keeping a big contributor in keeping Zappe on his feet and the run game. Because it was such a run-heavy game yesterday, they were able to actually get through. So this is going to be an interesting week to see another Belichick decision on, does he bench Isaiah Wynn? Because Wynn was on the bench for a majority of the remainder of the game once they replaced him with Cannon, but he did come back in at some point. So I'm just curious to see if we've kind of seen Isaiah Wynn lose his starting role. I don't know. But I don't know that they're going to, officially just bench Wynn, because they do pay him over $10 million this season because they picked up his 5th-year option. So he's not cheap. So I don't blame them for wanting to use him as much as possible. But like I wrote in in my second part of my good and bad articles this morning, that Wynn is becoming a liability. He's doing worse things that are impacting the offense and actually kind of just like playing well enough to keep the offense going, but making mistakes, but it's not really affecting the offense, if that makes any sense. It's just becoming too much of an issue that I feel he might needs to be benched or something needs to happen because it's not getting better. If anything, it's getting worse. And I did want to talk about the offensive line grades yesterday because although we're giving lots of praise to Marcus Cannon, the offensive line had a really good game. Trent Brown too, and we'll get to Cole Strange in just a second. But Onwenu, according to PFF, their blocking grades for yesterday was an 87. Trent Brown, 84.6. Andrews, 83.6. Strange, 80.6. Cannon, 78.3. And Isaiah Wynn got a 21.2. So significant difference yesterday. And we'll have to see how Belichick responds to that because, depending on who they have playing quarterback, I mean, they're going to have to be careful because at this point, Jones has a busted up ankle. Because of his blown block, it led to a sack that then took Bryant Hoyer out. So we definitely don't want anything happening to Zappe because he's the only quarterback left on the squad. So, we don't want to be waiting for Jacoby Myers to come in and take over at quarterback. As great as and entertaining as that would be, it is definitely not an ideal situation. So I want to talk about some honorable mentions because I have to have them every week. Kendrick Bourne. I feel like I'm going to be talking about him every single week because, I'm a big fan and I just want to keep putting out that energy that maybe we're going to see him more. And I was hoping that we were going to in this game because like I said earlier, the quarterbacks have different chemistries with different receivers. And I was hoping that maybe Zappe or Hoyer were going to look more his way. And it looked like it was going to with Hoyer, but then he got taken out. So he started off more involved in the game at the beginning. He did have 2 catches for 23 yards. He had 1 carry for 15 yards. So it was good to see him use the backfield as well. He's had a lot of success there since joining the Patriots. I think I forget who said it, but I think he has over 140 yards since he joined the Patriots last year in the backfield. And I was hoping we were going to see more of that because with the play calling having some issues with being kind of predictable, I think he adds a unique layer to the run game that defenses might not be preparing for. And when they use him in the backfield, I think it's been nearly perfect. It's worked out almost every time. So he just keeps showing more and more examples of why they need to be using him in the offense more. And he's always making an impact and moving the ball downfield. So I'm waiting to see Matt Patricia. I don't know if it really is just an issue or what, but I want to see him used more. If that means that Patricia needs to put an ego aside, a grudge aside, then they need to figure it out, because withholding such an impactful player from participating in the offense because you're upset with him or whatever it is, I think is ridiculous. He's shown so many times that he is a huge asset for them, and to have him just kind of like sitting there and watching a game is just, it's just silly at this point. Oh, Joe makes a good point. He says if Myers played quarterback, we could possibly find out how creative Matty P could be on offense. That is very true. Although it is very true, I don't know that I want to find that out. as great as that could potentially be, I'm not sure if I'm there yet. I don't think I'm emotionally or mentally equipped to handle that at this point. And speaking of Matt Patricia, I want to say that play calling was not that bad yesterday, especially given the circumstances. So you could see throughout the first 3 games that there was kind of that issue of like a vanilla offense with Patricia. And that was a complaint, I think, with a lot of people, which was completely fair. And that didn't seem to really be the issue yesterday. I feel like the change-ups in planning were obvious from when Hoyer was playing to when Zappe came in. Definitely more of the old style Patriots offense when Hoyer was playing, and more of an RPO heavy college like playbook with Zappe. And so that just got me thinking about what would be great for them to do when Mac returns, because I think that is something that we've all been asking for basically this season, especially that Jones is that they implement more things that Jones likes and that he's good at, and that what he used in college. And although they've kind of tried to do that a little bit, we're not seeing it a lot. And so because we saw this on the grand stage of the game of the week yesterday, the differences between Hoyer and Zappe, I'm really hoping that will translate over to when Mac returns, because we saw how beneficial it was for both of them. I mean, there were definitely some bad decisions to go with a run play that shouldn't have been a run play, or not letting Zappe throw the ball downfield when he very well should have, because the kid has an arm. I mean, he threw for 6,000 yards last year in college, so we should have been having him throw the ball downfield more. But yeah, I think it's going to be something that I'm going to pay attention to for sure when Matt comes back, because I think he's also expressed the frustration a little bit that they're not implementing the things that he likes more. So it will definitely be interesting. Also, there's a lot of interesting things to pay attention to, and that is one of them. And then, as I said earlier, I was going to talk about Cole Strange. Oh, wait. What did Joe say? He said, was it me, or did the announcers make it sound like Zappe didn't know the NFL offense? I honestly don't know. I was kind of like muted. I muted the commentary during the game because I just don't like listening to them, honestly. And it just makes the game a little bit more enjoyable for me, because most of the time, especially when it's Romo and Nance, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter, but especially Romo and Nance, they tend to not really give them a lot of credit. And so I just didn't want to listen to it because I was stressed enough. I didn't need to have added stress because the commentators didn't want to give them credit for anything. So I wouldn't be surprised if they insinuated that, honestly. So, as I said, Cole Strange, he's silencing the critics, all of the people that were laughing at the Patriots for going with him in the first round. He's like not even a guy that they're talking about that as a problem. If anything, he's become a huge asset. He is looking like one of the better draft picks by Belichick in a long time. And he held his own yesterday. And even when he was matched up with one of their better guys on the defensive line in Kenny Clark, he held his own against Kenny Clark, which is amazing to see. If you haven't seen it, there's clips. Taylor Kyles, he works at Next Gen Stats. He posted some clips of it on his Twitter, and I think I might have included it in my article. So you could check that out, but you can see he's just so good. And it's nice to see the offensive line kind of come together and not be such an issue every single week. Obviously Isaiah Wynn has his issues, but the offensive line did not look like a well-oiled machine in the preseason. So the fact that we're kind of talking about them in a positive light says a lot about how much they've changed through preseason to week 4. And I mean, I feel like at this point he's done such a good job, Strange has, that do I have to say anything good about him? Like, if I don't talk about him, it's because he's doing such a good job that it's like, okay, well, I don't have to talk about him because he's just playing so well every single week that it's like nothing special, if that makes sense. But Chris says, Sarah, dare you to call up Sean McVay and ask him about Cole Strange. I'm sure he's a little bit jealous about it because look at the problems that they're having over there. I'm sure he's regretting his laughter at the Patriots taking him in the first round, because they're not doing too hot down in LA. And the last of the honorable mentions has to go out to Damien Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, an elite running back duo. They alternated all game long again. Both were great on the ground. They totaled 152 yards on the ground, and Harris scored the only rushing touchdown of the day, which put the Pats up 24-17. Showed great bully ball again, and I really like the idea of alternating between them, because then one is not getting too tired and the other one is great to come back in. They play differently, but both are really great. So I was on board with this, and they had to use a lot of the run game because of maybe a little bit of uncertainty at quarterback, but also the Green Bay run defense is not good. So the fact that they were able to take advantage of that was a huge win in my book. So let's go to the not so good. I don't know that it's shocking at all that I'm talking about Isaiah Wynn, and we talked about him a little bit. It'll be interesting to see if he does lose his job, but I wouldn't count on it, guys. We might just see him maybe alternating with Marcus Cannon for the rest of the season. We shall see. Depends on what they do with Marcus Cannon, because he did revert back down to the practice squad. So we'll have to see if he is eventually signed, especially because Cajuste did go to IR. So he will miss at least 4 games. So Isaiah Wynn. Same issues that we have seen with him all season long, and I was really hoping that this wasn't going to be a topic that I was going to have to talk about today, but unfortunately it is. So on the Patriots' third drive, he did have back-to-back penalties, a false start on a drive that started on their own 8-yard line, so they're already backed up into their own end zone, and he, of course, had to then get a false start penalty. Then on the next play, he was flagged for holding. The Packers did decline it because, I mean, there was basically nowhere for them to go, and they didn't want to give them an extra down. They only went for 2 yards on the play at that point anyway, so there wasn't a whole lot of anything for them to get excited about to give them the penalty. He also had the bad block, like I said earlier, that led to Hoyer's sack and his eventual concussion, and also is responsible for the strip sack on Zappe before halftime. So that is the reason why he was replaced by Marcus Cannon for much of the rest of the game. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this week goes, and maybe if the media asks Belichick about what's going on with Wynn and if we're going to see Marcus Cannon participate more, if he's going to be signed to the roster. But it's not looking too good for Isaiah Wynn. I would assume they're not going to be bringing him back next year. I wouldn't count on him being released. I don't feel like he's performing well enough for, to be drawing interest from teams to want to trade for him. I mean, I guess if you're like super desperate and you want a veteran offensive lineman, then maybe, but as of right now, I wouldn't count on him being released. I know a lot of people don't want him on the team, but he might be an okay depth piece at this point, and I'm fully on board to have Marcus Cannon take over, because I mean, in his first start for the Patriots in however many years, it's like I said, it didn't look like he had missed a beat at all. So and that is such an important part right now, because the offense is struggling with, the quarterback and the receivers are kind of not jiving. So having them deal with whether or not they're going to be able to avoid a sack or not is obviously not ideal. And another name that everyone's been talking about is Miles Bryant. So this is the thing, is I'm kind of conflicted on, I put him in the worst of the week, and it's a little bit difficult because if you look at his coverage stats for this game, he didn't play that bad, despite what the eyes will tell you. So he only allowed 2 of 4 completions for 25 yards. And I think that might be shocking to a lot of people who watched the game yesterday, because there were people who were calling for him to be fired after this game. And he definitely has had a very up and down season. I think that's just the type of player that he is. Since he's been on the Patriots, he's been very much of a roller coaster where he has really great games and then some really bad games. And I think yesterday was kind of in between, because as far as what he was credited for, that's not bad at all, especially with, I think he was on the field for almost every single defensive snap. So I would have to look at that again. I should have kept those numbers, but there was a point where Rodgers was taking advantage of the fact that he was struggling, and he threw his way a lot. So he wasn't credited for those negative plays against him, but obviously it put a bit of a damper on the game, because Rodgers was just like, all right, I'm going to keep throwing this dude's way because he's not doing anything. So he did get flagged for DPI on a 3rd and 6 play, which continued the drive for the Packers, which did end up it ended in a punt. Okay, so it did end up in a punt, but as I said earlier, it took time away from the Patriots offense being able to get on the field and possibly even score a field goal so that they didn't have to go to overtime. But it's just, I think that the biggest issue with him is that his margin of error is small. And so far this season, despite what everyone on Twitter is saying and all the football experts on Twitter are saying, he has not been that bad this year. And he might just need to be less. He might just be needed to take the field more as a rotational piece rather than, being on the field for almost the entirety of a game. And that might change now that we've seen Jack Jones playing so well yesterday, and maybe once Jalen Mills is back, I think that there might be some more switch ups there in the secondary. And I think that we might need it with Miles Bryant. As long as he is staying also out of the return game, I'm all for it, because that was just a hot mess. So let's keep that on Marcus Jones, because he looked great yesterday. Those are the only two players I think that I specifically talk about this week. So the rest is just kind of, other random stuff like penalties. Another part that I talked about on Saturday that they needed to get better about. And of course that did not happen. So they totaled 7 penalties for 40 or 75 yards compared to, I believe the Packers had 4 for 40. And they didn't get flagged, I think, for the first time until the third quarter. So that was kind of odd. But 2 of those penalties were from Isaiah Wynn. So there was 3 total on offense, 2 on defense, and 2 on special teams, 2 on Wynn, as I said, on the same drive for a false start and a hold. Brendan Schooler got a horse collar that I think was a questionable play. It did end up putting Rodgers at the 50-yard line. And I think that the commentators also didn't agree with it, because it was a point that people were making. They didn't show a replay of that at all, like through the broadcast. It was like basically you saw it in real time and that was it. And then they kind of just didn't talk about it again. So from what I understand, people were saying that that is what a horse collar is now, that it used to be just grabbing them by the collar and pulling them down. But that's not what Schooler did. Schooler had him on the back, like by the nameplate, and he was flagged. So I think it was very questionable. And, but if that's what they're doing now, then sure. But it was just definitely like a discouraging moment, because Schooler has been really great so far this year. And then we didn't see a replay of the Cody Davis flag either, which I mean, maybe I missed it, but I didn't see that either, because he was also flagged on special teams. But there needs to be a bigger emphasis, as I've said a million times, on preventing the piling up of these flags, because they are taking away way too many positive plays, and opportunities are being given to opponents that shouldn't be. And so it's going to be difficult for them to win. It was the turnover battle was a little bit better in this game, but if they keep piling up flags that are taking back positive plays on offense or giving more opportunities to the opponents, then it's like, you're not going to be able to win games. Like, it's just not going to happen. So, and hand in hand with that, there were some blatantly missed calls by the referees. And, I don't like to blame calls or non-calls for anything for the result of a game or whatnot. But, these are things that were very obvious to the viewer at home. And it should have been also to the referees who are standing there and watching it, right? Like in live time, like right in front of them. In the first one, I have 3 instances that were pretty bad. And the first one is intentional grounding by Rodgers. It was a very clear call. And it was so obvious that even ESPN's Mike Reese, who covers the Patriots, he tweeted about it. And I always say, if Mike Reese is saying something about it, then it's bad, because he is not the type that ever really says anything in that regard. And so if he's taking time out of his busy schedule to sit there and tweet about something not looking good, then it probably was pretty bad. So there was that one. Another instance was Judon was held, which this was such a problem last year, where Judon was being double teamed and held, and it would be right in front of the referee and just never called. I swear it was called, once last season, and this happened again in this game. He was taken to the ground right in front of the referee at Rodgers' feet, and the referee just, I guess, pretended he didn't see it. Even Matt Chatham tweeted about it. He said, Judon was just straight tackled right in front of the ref at Rodgers' feet. That was asinine. That's a flag all day, every day. And ISO like that, and you let that go in what could have been a deciding play, bad officiating. So again, yes, he's a little bit biased because he played on the Patriots, but I feel like he's pretty fair as far as his critiques and just takes on the Patriots overall. So another guy that, he saw it clearly, and it was like, what is happening? And that was such an issue last year that I was really hoping would not continue this year, because it was in a lot of instances game changing that they didn't call this on the opponents when they were just dominating Jones for no reason, just taking him, holding on to him for dear life. And it's just ridiculous, because you're either going to call holding or you're not. You can't just see a blatant hold and just be like, oh, we're just letting them play. But then you have already called barely holds and penalized the team. So it is just ridiculous. And then also, Kendrick Bourne was egregiously held in the Patriots overtime on their drive on third down. You can see the video. I believe Kendrick Bourne quote tweeted it and was upset about it. So Zappe had broken free of the closing pocket and he extended the play, which was great to see. He could have had the opportunity to throw to Bourne had Bourne not been held, because then also the defender fell. He tripped over his own feet, and it would have very easily been a first down if Bourne wasn't held. So again, I understand it's overtime and they don't want to be calling penalties and whatnot because it's overtime, and it's like, okay, like they don't want to be responsible for determining the result of a game. But at the same time, you need to be calling things that are obvious, because otherwise when you go into overtimes, teams are going to do whatever they want, because it's like, well, we're in overtime and you aren't doing anything and they know that you're not doing anything. So that was, another huge missed call. I'm sure there was other ones, but I feel like those were the ones that stood out the most. And Joe says Bourne wanted a flag on that final third down. Yes, exactly. And I think he was warranted completely. I mean, the guy was holding on to him, and it's probably what ended up leading to him falling, because Bourne tried to break free of him and then he fell to the ground and he instantly was asking for a flag. So, given the fact that it was their first possession in overtime, I just think it's kind of ridiculous that the referees pretended like they didn't see it. And also, for those wondering, the Patriots have made the Jamie Collins news official. So welcome back, Jamie, for his, his fifth stint? I don't know. Is it his fifth? I don't even know. His fifth stint. Oh, he's going to the practice squad. Okay, so that's why they released Lange. Okay. Well, that makes sense. I guess that, the people who were hoping that it was making the move for a quarterback can, sorry, my cat is like about to freak out over something. I don't know what's going on. Okay, it's his fourth stint. Thank you, Chris. I saw people saying fifth too, and I was like, I don't know. He's another one like Brian Hoyer who just keeps coming back. So another sucky part of the game yesterday was the injuries. What are you doing, Rims? Can you just chill out? Thank you. So we know that there was injuries coming into this game, but the injuries that were sustained in this game was Hoyer going down with a concussion. So we'll have to monitor that as well, especially with it unclear at this point about how much longer Mac is going to be out. And, if they're going to need to bring in another quarterback on the practice squad, at least if Hoyer can't play next week in place of Jones, you definitely don't want to be going into a game with only Zappe. I feel like that's just a bad idea. Jonnu Smith went down with an ankle. He was hobbling off the field and went straight to the locker room. There was reports of them believing it looked like a high ankle sprain, but I don't think that we've heard anything about it yet. I haven't heard anything official, so we'll have to pay attention to that as well. And then McCourty and Phillips were shaken up in this game. Rams, no. They were also shaken up in this game. I don't think that it held them out. I think that they returned to the game pretty quickly after that, but still something worth monitoring, because McCourty especially took a big hit. I think it was it Tanyan? It might have been Tanyan, to the back. So hopefully it was nothing that, is still going to bother him in the weeks coming, but we shall see. So what are you guys saying? Oh yeah. Remy says hi. This is just how she is every single week. It's without fail. Every single time I get on camera, she decides that that's the moment that she wants to be on camera too. So it's like, people say that the cats know and whatever, or an animal knows when the camera's up. Like I have some dogs that know when you're trying to take a picture of them, so they make sure that you can't get a picture of them. My cat is one that knows when the camera is on and then I'm live streaming, so that's when she decides that she wants to be a star. So there is that. So that is all I have for today, guys. I will be back on Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern with E2G Sports to talk about the Lions at Patriots in week 5. And they will be wearing their throwbacks, guys. I totally forgot about that until last night when I was thinking that it was the Lions that they were playing next. So I am very excited, and I know quite a few people are going to the game. So have fun. I feel like it's going to be, I'm hoping that it's going to be a good game. The Lions have looked really great this year. Kind of fell a little bit yesterday, but still scored a ton of points, and they didn't have their starting running back or their golden boy of a receiver in Ramondre St. Brown. So the Patriots definitely have a tough run at them next week. So I will be here on Friday to talk all about it. And Freddie says Extreme Rules predictions show and after show. Possibly. I could possibly do that. My friend Pat Pitts, who's been on here with me, we're trying to get back into doing our wrestling podcast. So I can see if he has time this week to maybe we could do that. I don't know how many people would join, honestly. But I am down to do that because I'm very excited to see Extreme Rules, and I think it would be fun to talk about wrestling. So let me know, Freddie. I think you're on Twitter. Just tweet me and tell me like if there's a day that works good for you. And I'll talk to Pat and see if we can figure that out. So until then, guys, Hey Yo Foxboro will be back on Friday, like I said, and we will talk all about the Patriots-Lions game. So I will see you guys then. Have a great week and go Pats. Bye, guys.